Stop scrolling for a second. What if I told you that the rule that made me wealthy was discovered while I was being held captive by drug traffickers? Before money started flowing into my life, I survived things most people only see in movies. Kidnappings, a shadow of the Yakuza, and a war with criminal networks that operated across continents. And yet the strangest part? None of those things made me rich. A single rule did, but to understand it, you need to hear the story. Most people believe wealth begins with opportunity. They're wrong. Wealth begins with pressure, real pressure, the kind that strips you of comfort, identity, and illusions. Years ago, I was not a businessman, not a strategist, not a leader. I was a man trying to survive in a place where mistakes cost lives. And that place was a concrete room with no windows. The cartel didn't care who I was. To them, I was simply leverage, a piece on a board, 3 guards, 1 steel door, 1 dim light flickering above my head like it was counting down my time. Fear does something strange to the mind. At first, it destroys you. Then, if you survive long enough, it sharpens you. And in that room, I began to notice something. Power rarely belongs to the loudest person in the room. Power belongs to the one who sees patterns others ignore. Every guard had habits. Every conversation had hidden motives. Every organization, even criminal ones, had weaknesses. By the time I left that room, I understood something terrifying. Most powerful systems are fragile. You just need to understand where to touch them. Freedom came unexpectedly. Not because I fought, not because I begged, but because I learned how to become invisible inside their system. Invisible people hear everything. Invisible people see everything. Invisible people survive. And once I was free, I realized something even more powerful. If one person could study a system, a small group could control it. That's when the idea was born. Not a gang, not a corporation. Something different. A network that could appear anywhere and disappear just as easily. A small circle of people who understood systems, money, influence, power, information. We didn't need armies. We needed clarity. At our peak, there were fewer than 20 of us. Yet people whispered about us in places where whispers usually meant danger. Certain deals suddenly collapsed. Certain corrupt networks quietly fell apart. Certain powerful people suddenly changed their decisions. No one knew why. They only knew one thing. Something unseen was moving. The mafia feared violence, corporations feared exposure, politicians feared influence, but what they couldn't understand was us, because we didn't attack, we redirected. Imagine a virus, not destructive but intelligent. A virus that enters a system and quietly rewrites how it behaves. That was us. But power has a strange side effect. The more effective a method becomes, the faster the world begins to copy it. The strategies we use began appearing everywhere. Books, business schools, startups. Suddenly everyone was talking about systems thinking and network leverage, but they still missed the core. Because the real secret was never strategy. Strategy is just a tool. The real secret was something far more dangerous, something that can build empires, or destroy a person completely. And most people misunderstand it, even today. Money eventually came, a lot of it. Not because I chased it, but because systems reward those who move differently inside them. People think wealth is about working harder. It's not. Millions of people work hard. Very few change the direction of the system they're inside. But here's the problem. If the methods we use became common knowledge, many people would hurt themselves, because these ideas amplify intention. In the hands of a clear mind, they create opportunity. In the hands of confusion, they create chaos. So for years we stayed silent, watching, observing, waiting, until one night someone asked me a question I couldn't ignore. If your methods can change systems, why not help the world use them? I thought about it for a long time, weeks, months, years, and eventually I realized something simple. You don't give people power directly, you hide it inside a story. So here is the truth, the rule that changed everything, the rule that allowed a small, invisible network to outmaneuver empires, the rule that made money begin flowing toward me instead of away from me. It is surprisingly simple, but almost no one truly follows it. The secret is this: a person with a dream, who moves toward it every single day without hesitation, becomes a force stronger than systems themselves. Most people dream, most people quit, but the rare few who refuse to stop, they bend reality. Slowly. Quietly. I didn't build wealth. I built movement toward a dream. And money simply followed the direction I was already going. But if you think the story ends with a dream, you're wrong. Because the moment you start moving towards something bigger than yourself, the world begins to notice. Not everyone celebrates movement. Some people depend on your stagnation. And when our small network began quietly shifting powerful systems, certain people started asking dangerous questions. Who were we? Where did we come from? And most importantly, how were we doing it? At first, the questions were whispers, a banker suddenly losing a deal, a crime syndicate watching their operations collapse without explanation, a politician realizing information was leaking before decisions were even made. No fingerprints, no threats, no violence, just systems, changing direction, like a current in the ocean slowly pulling ships off course. And that made people nervous, very nervous. One evening I received a message from someone who was never supposed to know we existed. It was only one sentence. We know someone is rewriting the game. No signature, no threats. But the meaning was clear. The more influence you create in silence, the more dangerous attention becomes. That night I realized something important. Invisible power must remain invisible, or it stops being power. So we adapted. That was always our greatest skill. We never fought systems directly. We flowed through them, like water finding the smallest cracks in stone. Instead of growing larger, we became smaller, more decentralized, more silent. No headquarters, no hierarchy, only ideas moving between people who understood the same rule. People imagine secret organizations as dark rooms filled with powerful men making plans. Reality is different. Most of our conversations happened in ordinary places, cafes, airports, train stations. Sometimes entire operations were discussed during a casual walk through a park. Anyone watching would see nothing unusual, just two people talking about life. But beneath the conversation, systems were shifting. Over time, we learned something fascinating about power. The biggest institutions in the world move slowly. Governments, corporations, financial systems. They look enormous, but they struggle to change direction. A small group with clarity can move faster than all of them combined. And speed, when guided by vision, becomes influence. That was our advantage. But influence attracts something dangerous: imitators. People began trying to recreate what they thought we were doing. They copied strategies. They studied networks. They built organizations designed to manipulate systems. But they misunderstood the core principle. Without the right mindset, the same methods collapse. And many of them did. Because techniques alone are powerless. People search for tactics because they want shortcuts. But systems do not reward shortcuts, they reward consistency. Every decision we made was guided by the same internal compass. A question we ask ourselves every day: does this move us closer to the dream? If the answer was no, we didn't touch it. The simplicity of that rule confused people. They expected complexity, secrets, hidden formulas, but the truth is almost frustratingly simple. When your direction becomes clear enough, decisions become easier, energy stops scattering, time stops leaking into meaningless pursuits. Everything begins moving toward a single point, and systems start responding to that movement. Money was never our objective, but money loves direction. It flows toward movement the same way rivers flow toward the sea. Once our focus sharpened, opportunities began appearing everywhere. Investments, partnerships, ideas that others ignored suddenly became extremely valuable. And slowly, quietly, wealth began accumulating. Not explosively, but inevitably. Yet the greatest reward wasn't money. It was freedom. Freedom to choose where to go, who to work with, which systems deserved our attention, and which ones deserved to disappear. Many powerful networks built on corruption simply unraveled, not by force, but by losing the hidden advantages they relied on. Still, there was always a risk. Knowledge spreads. Every year, more people discovered fragments of our philosophy, books about systems thinking, courses about leverage, discussions about invisible influence. The world was slowly approaching the same ideas we had discovered through survival, and that worried us. Because knowledge without discipline can be dangerous. Some people want power without responsibility. They want influence without vision. They want wealth without purpose. But when those people gain access to powerful tools, Systems become unstable, and unstable systems eventually collapse. That was never our goal. Our goal was balance, quiet correction, guiding systems away from corruption and towards sustainability. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is, but over time we saw something incredible. Small actions in the right places can change outcomes for millions of people, without anyone knowing it happened. Today, many members of that network live ordinary lives. Some run companies, some teach. Some travel the world quietly observing systems the way we always did. From the outside, we look like everyone else. That was always the design, because true influence rarely needs recognition. Recognition only attracts unnecessary attention. Sometimes people ask me if the organization still exists. I always smile when they ask that question, because they imagine an organization as something physical, something with offices, documents, leaders. But ideas are far more powerful than structures, and ideas cannot be destroyed. They can only spread. So the truth is simple. The network never disappeared. It evolved. Every person who understands the rule becomes part of the same movement. Not officially, not visibly, but philosophically. People who move relentlessly toward meaningful dreams naturally begin reshaping the systems around them, even if they don't realize it. That is why I am telling this story now, not to reveal names, not to expose methods, but to pass forward the one principle that made everything possible. The same rule that carried me from a dark room with no windows to a life of freedom and influence. And if you understand it deeply enough, it may change your life too. Dream clearly. Move toward it every single day. Ignore noise, doubt, and distractions. Systems will resist at first. People will question you. Opportunities will appear slowly. But momentum builds quietly. And one day you will realize something extraordinary. You are no longer chasing the dream. The world is beginning to move toward you. Before you leave, there's one more thing you should understand. The story you just heard is only a fragment. Over the years, I was asked to pass on certain knowledge. Not openly, not like instructions in a manual, but hidden inside stories. The way ancient teachers used parables to protect powerful ideas from careless minds. Some secrets are too dangerous when explained directly. But when they are wrapped inside a story, only those who are ready will truly understand them. So if this story made you think, if something in it felt strangely familiar, then you are already beginning to see the pattern. There are many more stories like this. Stories about power, influence, survival, and the hidden rules that shape the world around us. Inside each one, there are ideas I was instructed to pass forward, quietly, carefully, almost invisibly. Not everyone will notice them, but some of you will. If you want to hear those stories and discover the secrets hidden between the lines, subscribe to the channel. Because every story I tell carries something more than entertainment. Somewhere inside the narrative, behind the characters and events, there is always a principle, a key, a hidden rule. And if you listen closely enough, you may find the one that changes your life. The next story is already waiting.